So I've just gone for a food shop and I have seen this car on its side in a hedge. Now these poor people that live there, in the last few weeks, they've had a car that crashed into this part of their garden facing towards the road. And then you have this, literally a few weeks later. Now, first of all, the first car that ended up here, someone later posted on the community board saying, oh, how my mate was really unlucky and got caught in a skid and was trying to arrange recovery options like getting quotes, etc. Here's the thing with that. They weren't unlucky, sorry, but they weren't unlucky. They were either inexperienced, a plum, or both. Skids don't just happen. They happen to people that are driving incorrectly and have not adapted their driving to the conditions. Very recently, we all know we've had icy conditions and there's been a lot of incidents in my area. Unfortunately, someone was killed. Now, I'm not going to speculate on death and say that this was caused by someone that was driving wrong for the conditions. But what I will say is people were posting in the morning saying the road they were on was treacherous and they were skidding on ice. I drove out having not seen those posts and I'd already adapted my conditions to driving in ice because my car was telling me it was -2, and I didn't skid, and I went on some very, very big, severe country lanes. I'll put some footage of it here, of the type of road that I was driving on in ice. You can get unlucky, okay? But there are 3 main causes of a driver-initiated skid. A driver-initiated skid is almost every skid you see on the road where the driver has done something wrong. So to end up like that, you've got to have done something pretty wrong. Simple as that. The first thing that this person could have done wrong is over-acceleration. So if you go round a bend and you have too much power going through to your wheels, either you're in too low a gear or you're putting too much gas on, you risk a skid. The power goes down very quickly to the wheels cannot grip on the ice, and you go into a skid. So over acceleration is often people that are just driving too fast, haven't adapted to the fact there's ice. The second major cause of a skid is oversteering. This is most common in newer drivers because they will maybe approach a bend a little bit too fast, not quite get the steering right, and then have to rapidly turn the wheel. Now what that creates is your wheels go sideways very quickly, and imagine sideways but going forward, they skid on the ice. So you need to be steering gently. The third, and probably the most common cause of a skid, is over braking. So if you go round a bend and you are on the brake pedal, in summer, you'll probably get away with that. In winter, or in ice or mud, you might not. So one of my learners done about 20 hours, and a few weeks ago, he'd had a bit of a thing, a bit of a hard time because his partner had gone off the road and ended up on her roof in her car. And obviously, oh my God, is it okay? And she's discharged from hospital, bad concussion, but could have been much worse. Now, I said just very simply, look, do you know what speed she was doing? The black box said she was doing about 29. That's not horrendous knowing the bend. Not horrendous, but it is a little bit quicker than I'd probably be going. That's really just, look, inexperience. But the real problem was he then said she was braking as she went round the bend and there was mud on the road. And that's what caused, at relatively low speed, the skid and horrendous consequences. When my learners drive in the summer and they go round a bend and they're still braking, I pick them up and I get them to understand that this is one of the leading causes of skids, so that by the time they are then on the roads in the winter, hopefully they're going to be a little bit safer. I actually partially blame the driving instructor of that person who has not enough hammered home that you must not brake as you go around a bend. I think a lot of driving instructors, if you've got a pupil that brakes as they go around a bend in the summer, they don't really make a big point of it. you're then letting that pupil down when it comes to winter. Not saying the driving instructor is the only person to blame, but it's certainly part of it. I don't let my students brake as they go around the bend, as simple as that. When we had the icy conditions, there was two things I saw that really stuck out. The first one was this idiot in a Range Rover. I'm coming round, I'm in a national speed limit or just about to go into one, and coming the other way is an overtaking Range Rover hurtling at the speed of light. Nothing looks the same as it does on a dash cam, we all know that, but they are hurtling. Now look at that, you've got over acceleration. This was on 0 degrees, my temperature gauge in the car. You've got over acceleration. If something happens, you've 100% got over braking, and to come back in at speed, you've got oversteering. So you've got potentially all three elements that cause a skid in that idiot that's driving there. They have not adapted their driving to the conditions. They're just driving as they normally do, like a lunatic. Stupidity. If you watch that and think it's cool, you're an idiot. Now, the next thing. That night, same day, and my learner and I were driving home at night, and all my lessons, of course, we've been particularly working on avoiding these skids. Three very basic things. They are the basics of not getting into a skid. My learner, we turned into this roundabout. We did check on these people, they were okay, but look what you've got. You've got a delivery driver, and we all know delivery drivers are under pressure. And on a bend, yet again, there they are now in a ditch. Now, yes, it could be medical. You could have had a blackout at that point, a stroke. But let's face it, he stood there with his mate. We chatted to him, checked he was all right. He stood there with his mate. He's just gone round the bend too quickly. He's had to either steer too much, brake too hard, or he's used too much gas, or a combination of the three, and there's your skid. It's so predictable. Look at me now, I'm on a muddy road. So at the moment, they're picking up the sugar beet in Norfolk, we're in country roads. So I now am in a national speed limit. I'd usually do about 40 along here, I'm doing 35. So I've adapted something in my driving. Now I've got a warning sign for a bend. I know there's mud on the road, so I'm off the gas now, early. By the sign I'm braking, it's gentle. I'm not over braking, I'm not over gassing. I've changed the gear, clutch is back up, brake stays on, and as I go around the bend, it is just the gas pedal gently feeding the fuel into the engine. And oh look, I don't skid. Now, genuinely, like I said, when I went out in the icy conditions on that tragic day, I could see the ice, but I didn't feel one effect of ice because I was driving correctly. I've adapted my conditions. My learners that day didn't feel the ice at all because we're driving, we've adapted the conditions. I hammer it into my learners what the three causes of the skid are, and that's the three things that they are working to avoid doing. And if a learner, first time driving in the ice, can drive without skidding, then we should all be able to do it. There isn't excuses. Again, like on my other videos, I say there's YouTube channels. I'm a driving instructor, putting my time into this YouTube channel to try and help people, give you information. If you learnt in the summer, what is the harm in messaging a driving instructor and say, do you know what, could I just have a lesson before we get to the winter? I don't want to end up like half these plums in a field. I've had it occasionally, the odd person, I think, wow, that person's got a really good attitude. Now, look, lessons are expensive. I understand that. So if you're going to take a driving lesson in my area with me, it's £40 an hour. I charge what I feel I'm worth, but also I have to make up a certain amount of money because the expenses are very high, especially where I live and the distances I have to travel. And there you go, there's the police picking up the details of the person who's skidded into that house again. That doesn't just happen. It is someone driving like a plum and hasn't adapted their driving. Now, but think about if you took that driving lesson with me and you spent an hour and a half updating your skills of how do I drive in mud, how do I drive in the winter and the ice. You'd spend £60. How much is that going to cost the person when they have to declare on their insurance they've had an at-fault claim? They were the reason it went into a skid. How much would you save yourself? It staggers me watching people in Norfolk how so many people do not adapt their driving conditions when there is mud and ice about. And unfortunately, it can have really, really tragic circumstances.